So Eric, tell me about the first time you heard the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
First time I heard the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy was May of 2023. It took me probably a month to be able to say it correctly. It took me more time to really understand what it meant. It was a potential diagnosis, and so it wasn't confirmed until July. And so the first time I heard it, I felt heard, I think, for the first time, because I knew something was wrong and a potential diagnosis was there. I felt unsure of what my future would look like, and it's been an adventure ever since. Sad, I'd say depression came in. I would say relief came in. So a foreign word that became very familiar, and one that has taken, I would say, many different meanings since that initial time.
I think that is eloquently said. And on that, I welcome you all to Tales from the Heart, a podcast by the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association. My name is Lisa Salberg. I'm the CEO. I'm the founder. I'm a former patient. I am pleased to be joined in our first podcast of 2025 by two amazing individuals. The last names will let you know that they are related. We are dealing with a son and a mother with a diagnosis of HCM. Eric, I'm going to start with you and tell us a little bit about your story a little bit deeper. So we heard that this first came around for you in May of 2023. We had a lot to learn and unpack, which then included family screenings. So let's start with you and go backwards. You said that your diagnosis was kind of like a bit of a relief because you were heard. What was the struggle to get to the words? What was the struggle to get to a diagnosis? And how long did you struggle with that?
The struggle became way more apparent in the last few years. The journey started way before that. I started having high blood pressure in 2001 when I was in the military. Within the next couple years, I went to see the doctor for things such as shortness of breath, heart palpitations, dizziness, and that went on for many years I would say a low level, but enough to allow me to go to the doctor to see it and talk about it throughout the years. I specifically remember 2018 going to really start to see cardiologists in a meaningful way because of walking up the stairs, felt more labored, shortness of the breath, the heart palpitations, the dizziness became more apparent. I thought it was for the longest time that I was tired, stressed.
Let's go back a second here. So you're in the United States of America's military. Mm-hmm. What were you trained to do in the military?
Started out in pilot training and switched over from pilot training, self-eliminated, and went into what's now called force support, but at the time was personnel.
So you did how many years of active service?
4 years of active service and 2 years of reserve status.
And during this time, you had cardiac symptoms, but we didn't come to a diagnosis yet.
No diagnosis. In 2003, they noted LVH, so lower ventricular hypertrophy. And that was seen in echocardiograms before going to a center of excellence.
Mom, were you aware of any of these symptoms that he was having in those early 2000 years, or was this something he didn't talk to you about?
Yes, we were aware. Different things would happen, and we would come down to be there for him for different situations. So we were aware that he was going through a lot. We didn't know the intensity until now, but yeah, we were aware.
Eric, where do you live today?
Washington, D.C.
And you're no longer in the military.
No longer in the military.
What do you do for a living?
Run a real estate team in Washington, D.C.
No pressure in that whatsoever. Let's introduce Mom. Kitty, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the first time you remember hearing hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
I'm a retired nurse. I was treated for breast cancer and also had some symptoms. And so once Eric got diagnosed, we all got echocardiograms and was told mine was normal. I have mild, but I have left ventricular enlargement. And Eric looked at it and said, Mom, yours isn't normal. You need to go to a center of excellence to get looked at. But when I heard the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, I immediately, as a nurse, go on to look up this because I wasn't a cardiac nurse. I was a neonatal nurse and didn't know a lot about cardiology. And so I found your book, HCM for Patient Caregiver, an easy way to explain this disease. And it saved my mind from what in the world was going on with my son. I got diagnosed by a center of excellence. I went up to Dr. Ayers up at UVA. And when he told me I had it, I just started crying because I realized I gave this to him and I didn't even know I had it. And I had some symptoms when I was recovering from my cancer treatment. I had Herceptin, so I had to have many echoes. And I looked back at my echoes, and one of them said I had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, but nobody said anything to me. Cardiac enlargement, something like that, but nothing was said to me. So when I heard the words, I had to go find out what it was. And I was devastated because I didn't know the magnitude of what we were dealing with. I sent the book to all of my children, and the rest is history because we joined you, and thank God the support was there.
We'll catch up to that side of the story in a little bit. You said something here that I want to unpack with all of us because, I'm a patient with HCM. My dad had it, my grandmother, I can trace it back. So that genetic component that, oh my goodness, I had this, and I have a daughter with HCM. It was me, that's one thing. But when it's the child, I don't care how old the child is. Eric, you're a child right now. So there are children. We have given them something we did not intend. And I refer to this as genetic guilt. It doesn't have a lot of space in our life because we didn't choose it. It happened to us. We have to process it. How did you process it, or are you still processing it?
Much better than I was because I used to cry every time. As you remember when I was at the conference, whenever they'd ask me something, I would start crying because I realized I gave it to them. So I'm much better in that department because I realized that wasn't, somebody gave it to me. And my mother was the baby of the family and everybody's gone. So we have no idea about any of the cardiology from past. All my aunts and uncles are gone. So we don't have any genetic component that they've been able to dig from my DNA because I did get a genetic workup. It's a mystery. As far as I know, I'm the only one that has symptoms.
So when we talk about, genetic guilt, I know my mutation. You guys don't know your mutation, but you know that you both have it in the family. So we know that there are unidentified mutations that we hope to learn more about in the future. Right. And maybe we'll be able to untangle some of this, family mystery. I love the family histories next to the family mysteries, and you kind of put the two together. There's a lot of interesting family mysteries out there. Some of them are genetic, some of them are just, drama. Yeah. Eric, on your side of this, having the diagnosis and then mom getting screened and mom also getting a diagnosis because of your diagnosis, how does that make you feel? About, I got this from someplace else, or I've got this and so does my mom. How does that play for you?
Obviously, it made me think about my family as soon as I was diagnosed, given, what was occurring. I have a brother with 7 nephews, and, that came into play as well to how this may play out in our family. For me personally, I look at it as, I would say, an opportunity to learn more about myself and a challenge to tackle, as well as the ability to help people in a way that I didn't have. And so that's kind of how I looked into it. And I think how me and my mom have tackled it in the early stages of all of this.
Yeah, it's only been a year for me.
Yeah, it's only been a year.
But we found to tell a little bit of backstory here from my perspective, because I've not known you guys that long, but I feel like I've known you forever. It happens that way sometimes. So we put out a notice last January that we were going to be doing a Hill visit in Washington, D.C. And Eric, you signed up, and then you got your mom to sign up. And I think there were some other family members that were in and out with schedules and what have you. But we had not met before. You had not done an intake. You've read the book, you've been to the website, but you didn't do anything with us as an organization. And for that reason, among others, I'm like, they're on my team. I got to keep an eye on these guys. Know them. And we spent the day walking Capitol Hill together and knocking on doors and talking about the importance of knowing one's family heart health history so that we can identify genetic diseases in those who are at risk. Hearing your story and spending time with you and seeing how you operate as a family, dealing with something big and scary like HCM, and immediately within the first year, like jumping into Capitol Hill and go like, okay, we'll solve the problem. I'm like, I like these people. I like the energy. They get the problem and they want to solve it.
Yes.
But you're also living with it while you're trying to solve the bigger problem, something I can relate to quite a bit. Eric, tell me a little bit more about your life. You know, we all have lives, and then we throw HCM on top of it. So some of us have easier dynamics in our lives. Some of us have already dealt with some challenges. Kitty, you survived cancer. Eric, you've lived a life that's a little bit different than maybe some people might think of as, you know, what they've experienced in life. Tell us a little bit more about who Eric is as a whole person.
I am a member of the LGBTQ community. Came out at an early age. I have a partner of 10 years. Again, I run a real estate team here in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland. We cover all of it. We're a high producing team, and we put a lot into our work. I've always been an athletic individual. That was a huge part of my life and has been a huge part of my life for a long time. I started to get into triathlons in 2022, which is one of the areas that kind of led me to where I'm at right now. I think my first event was a half Ironman, so 70.3 race, swimming, biking, and running with my dad and brother. We all completed it together. It was my dad's first race. My brother had been the one that kicked us into it in 2022. And because of that, it led me on a different trajectory, I think, to where I'm at right now. That has obviously changed a tremendous amount of what I do on a daily basis. In 2022, went in February of 2022 for 2 blackouts in a row. So 2 days where I was blacking out, don't remember portions of the day. I was in a business meeting on one and conked out. The second one, I was showing homes, and instead of being 2 blocks away, which I was going from one house to another to show clients, it took me about 30 minutes to get there because I had blacked out unbeknownst at a stoplight. Unfortunately, had a fender bender, no damage.
Scary.
That was a Friday and Saturday, and went into the hospital on the recommendation of both my mom and my best friend here in DC, who's a ER doc. And went in for 24 hours for a tremendous amount of head and heart related workups. Specifically, I had very, very high blood pressure and was cleared in February of 2022 based off of cardiology and neurology and doctors to continue on with my everyday training, and went on to complete in that year a half Ironman, a 10K run, Marine Corps run, and a Olympic triathlon in October. And all along I was having very lethargic, shortness of breath going upstairs in a way that I had not felt before. Shortness of breath, obviously, things that I know now that were happening that I didn't know then. And in December of 2022, I went in for a swim specifically. I'd seen a doctor in October, a new cardiologist. I had an irregular EKG. They wanted to see me again in 6 months. So I went in for a swim one day, December, and started to have nausea, shortness of breath, couldn't complete anywhere close to what I was used to completing in the pool. And it felt like, in a Speedo, it felt like I had something just tightening around my chest. Didn't really think anything other than I was just tired and stressed and just needed to get more rest. And then it happened again in January. So I took a really big scale back of training. I was training. We had 2 half Ironmans scheduled for 2023. And in March of that year, I went in because I had blood pressure issues again, like really high blood pressure, and I wanted to go ahead and get an EKG. And that's when the doctor basically let me know that I did have mild LVH, which was noted in 2003, but could have been the sleep medication, depression medication as a contributing factor. And that I was basically fine to keep on and keep in touch with my general practice doc with any other concerns. And at that point, I just was kind of at my wit's end. I know my body. I know something was very wrong. And so went down to my parents' doctor just to get somebody else who was a trusted source. In the meantime, I had a friend who was going through another cardiac issue of his own and said, you may want to apply to one of the top educational medical facilities. And I applied for Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic. And within 4 hours of application, heard back from the Mayo Clinic in April of 2023, and then went in May of 2023. So that's a little about me.
That's so frightening on so many levels. So the good news is you survived all your worst days up until now. For whatever reason, things went well.
Mm-hmm.
People like you scare the hell out of me. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. I'm like, oh my God, this could have been so bad.
Yes.
But it's not. And this is a confounder. So for those who are watching the video cast, look at Eric. He looks like the picture of health. Yes. Mom looks like she could be a model. You could go do anything you wanted to do. You're gorgeous, you're healthy, you're fit people. You were out there running around without a safety net, without the knowledge that was in your medical records for so long that should have been actionable for you. And it wasn't. Like nobody said, hey, this needs some attention. You're actually having symptoms. You've blacked out on multiple occasions. You've had chest pain, but just keep training for the Ironman. And holy crap.
I'm just glad he didn't have a heart attack.
So cardiac arrest is more what I'm concerned with than an MI. But the stress on your heart over all this time being gaslit by the medical community, and I don't use that term lightly. You went with a concern. They diminished your concerns, said you were fine, and sent you back out there. This happens over and over and over again, not only in America, but around the world, because we look fabulous. Sorry, gonna say it. We look healthy. We look fit. They do the basic test. Oh, there's a little something there, but don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Eric, I'm really glad to be talking to you today. And not just because I like to talk to you on a podcast. I'm really glad you're on the earth right now.
Yes.
And that we've got you the treatment and protection that you now need. And now we enter the next chapter of your life, which is what activities to go back to in a safe way. And I want to be clear to our listeners that we're not saying, oh my goodness, Eric got diagnosed and he had to have all this stuff done, which we really haven't dove into all of the therapies he's had yet. But now we can go back to, it's not that we don't play sports anymore, we don't exercise, it's how do we do this safely? And now we're on the other side of this, because what did you do a couple of weeks ago? What little thing did you have done?
So in November 14th of this past year, 2024, I went back up to the Mayo Clinic to see my favorite people who saved my life, and had a septomyectomy done. So open heart surgery.
Yeah.
So the song "Take a Little Piece of My Heart" really resonates with you now.
A little bit.
So you have to, it's heart surgery, humor people. It's a thing. We have our coping mechanisms. Ask me my transplant jokes. I got a ton of them. So yeah, you have to make light to a certain degree. So you had your surgery in November. I was going to try to see you at the beginning of December, but our schedules didn't quite align. But how long were you down, and when did you get back to normal life?
I think to a degree you're still getting back to normal life. Yesterday was 7 weeks post surgery. Yesterday I also did a 13-mile Peloton ride. So
you're such an underachiever. You're such an underachiever. Has it always been like this, Kitty?
Yes, that's crazy. No, he has to do what he needs to do, but I don't want to know.
I have a safety net. In October of 2023, I had a nifty ICD installed as well. So 2 surgeries in the last 13 months. Again, this is a challenge for me. This is something that, I'm going to listen to my body. I was really lucky. I had a strong heart. Otherwise, I was in and out of the hospital for a septomyectomy. I went in Thursday morning and I was out Sunday. So I think it was somewhere around the 82 hours, which meant I was doing everything that I needed to be doing for the Mayo Clinic, one of the best in the world, in my opinion, yes, to get up and running. And, within a week of being home, I was walking probably 3 to 4 miles, not in succession, but over, a little bit. Yeah. Doing my breathing exercises. And now,
who's a good patient?
Now I'm either, 2 days ago, I did my first bike ride. Yesterday was my second bike ride. And I walked 1.5 miles this morning. I'll probably do a bike ride today. It's all what your body tells you to do. I want to continue on. This has definitely made me look at life so differently. So differently, and has allowed me to put a lot of things in place and still put things in place to make me live differently, more abundantly, more grateful, more helpful in regards to I want to be a resource for all those people that are going through this and, are listening to their doctors and, who are telling them, no, nothing's wrong, to be an advocate for themselves and get out there and really find out what's going on. If you've had a history of heart things in your family, be cautious. I had no idea what this word hypertrophic cardiomyopathy meant a year and a half ago.
Word.
I know it well now, and I want to shout it out to those hundreds of thousands of people that are undiagnosed. I don't have the same ability that I had to reach out, go to the centers of excellence on a whim. I want to get to those people because those are the people that need it the most.
I agree. And we have put something in place here at the HCMA. It's going on 2 years ago now that we began the Lori Fund. And that is for those who don't have the income to be able to jump on a plane and go to a specialty center. We will provide travel stipends for these individuals that will enable them to get to the Center of Excellence Care without worrying about travel money. So if you feel like you need a second opinion, please reach out to the HCMA. We'd be more than happy to get you involved with our programming to help you get to the kind of care that's really made a life-saving change and life-improving change for Eric's life. So you don't have to feel like it's not available to you. You may have more options than you know, so call the office and we'll be happy to help you. So I'm going to pivot for a second, and we're going to go to a different perspective of what Eric has lived through, and that's through the eyes of his mother. However, during this process, mom is a nurse, a mom, and then you become a patient. Kitty, what's your perspective of what's gone on in the past few years with your son and with your own health?
I think initially it was just being very afraid of losing him. And I was just grateful that he didn't die of a heart attack when he did the half Ironman, and just grasping what this disease is all about. And for me as a nurse, I look at it medically, what can go wrong, and I get scared. But I know now that there's great doctors out there and great facilities, and to be able to go to those places, I feel like he got the best care. And oh my gosh, they explained everything amazingly. Whatever I asked, whatever he asked, whatever he didn't ask, they told him about and educated him. And that just made my heart so happy. I mean, as a nurse, it made me happy. As a mother, it made me happy. And for me to be a patient, I have a milder case, but I'm also 72 years old. So I know that aging is going to be a gift to me. And I hope that my heart continues to do what it needs to do with the medications. I'm on several medications now to help me with blood pressure and my shortness of breath. And I had swelling in my legs, and I have heart palpitations. So I have to go on and get an EKG put on for a couple of weeks. They have to monitor that. I have to go up, and I'm going to the Center of Excellence to get a checkup again. So as a patient, I'm trying to get used to taking care of myself in a different way. My diet, my health, exercising, I have to be careful because my doctor said I needed, like if I rode my Peloton, I need to be in zone 2. I can't go balls to the wall like I used to or try to. So I have to take care of my health in a different way. I tried to keep up with
understanding the family dynamic so much better now. Just that one little dropped phrase from Kitty, I'm like, oh, now I understand. I know why Eric got out of the hospital in under 90 hours because he falls to the walls, and he just did it because that's what Mama taught him to do. Is that about right, Eric? Mama taught you all that?
It's about right. Yeah. Mom and Dad don't go lightly. My dad also at 70 did his first half Ironman. So, it's definitely an inherited trait from my parents, and my brother has it as well. So,
yes. Yeah, wow. I do 3 more half Ironmans. So I do worry about him. He's got an athletic heart. I'm going to worry. I'm going to worry because I'm a mom and I know.
Well, because we don't know the genetics in your family, that line between athlete's heart. Now, who gets a real athlete's heart? It's actually a really tiny group of people.
Yeah.
But somebody who's doing competitive training at the level he's doing could conceivably have an athlete's heart. But you have to be training at the top level. And he kind of sounds like he trains kind of at that top level.
He does.
So I would want an expert to take a look at that just to make sure. But he does fall into it actually could be an athlete's heart. I just like when the 40-something-year-old who does a 5K, once a month, calls himself a weekend warrior, and he has an athletic heart. That's a very different type of an exercise regimen and different type of person. Terms actually matter.
He's still training for triathlons. He's going to do 3 this coming year. He also has, my grandsons are involved in tennis and golf. I'm afraid sometimes that some people have a little more laissez-faire about this condition, that it's you that's going through it. And I think they need to really monitor themselves too, but you can't make them. You have to hope that they do what they need to do. So that's the hard part about being a mom and a nurse.
And understanding that the symptoms that you may have been feeling throughout your life that you just thought were normal things may not have actually been so normal. And without your son's diagnosis, you may have remained undiagnosed unless you went through your medical records and dug it out.
Well, and I went to the doctor constantly because I was having symptoms. I'd say I've got swelling in my legs. What's going on? I'm a nurse. I'm going to go to the doctor. And then they do an EKG and it'd turn out normal. I've been 8 years cancer free, but in the few years after that, I started having lots of symptoms. And I probably had it then and didn't know it.
You bring up another excellent point that about 20% of people with HCM will have a normal ECG. So you can have a normal ECG, but still have a very significant heart muscle disorder that needs attention. We only have so many tests that we can determine what might be going on. So we use our EKGs, but that's not always everything. So we go to echoes.
You have to make sure they know what they're doing as far as your measurements. That's what I learned with you and with the Center of Excellence.
So that community-based echo that you got was a lot different than that Center of Excellence echo, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, because all these people were around me when I did my stress echo. I did a stress echo with my doctor where I'm at now, who monitors me, and he stays in touch with my Center of Excellence doctor because I said, my son got diagnosed. I don't want to go through what he did. I want to make sure what's being done is correct. I'm going to push till I get what I need because I'm scared. I don't want that to happen to my son any more than I want it to happen to anybody.
And this is where the conversations of family heart health come in. Like, how do you discuss this? Yes. You two are now discussing this. I spent the day with you guys in DC.
It was great.
The conversation was natural. If somebody needed to slow down, you didn't have to really say much. You just watched each other's movements. Okay, we're going to go slower. Let's get the elevator, not the stairs. Let's do it this way, not that way. And you were reading into each other in ways that you may not have articulated, but you picked up on what each other's needs were in circumstances. And I watched and I'm like, that was me and my dad. That's how we did it. We didn't talk about it because we would have to talk about feelings and emotions. No, we would just take care of each other in these micro kindnesses. Let's get the elevator. Let's do this. Let's do that. We read each other because we love each other. And that's what we do in these families. But maybe we need to talk a little bit more. Maybe we need to articulate it to make sure each other knows what the other one needs. I'm not saying that about you two. I'm just generally in families.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be able to talk about it without being afraid that it's going to upset the other person. And that's why we also offer discussion groups at the HCMA, that maybe there's times that Eric wants to bounce something off somebody, but he doesn't want it to be his mom.
Yes.
And Kitty wants to bounce something off against another woman. You might want to talk to somebody who's got more of a shared life experience.
Yeah. I participated in one of those, and it was very, very helpful.
Well, we have 2 new ones coming up this year, actually 3 new ones coming up this year. One's going to be a men under 40s group, and one is going to be a women's group. And then about every other month, I'm going to be doing a special discussion group on genetics, known and unknown, and where we're going. So there's going to be some other opportunities in the coming year. And we're going to wrap this session up in another couple seconds here. But for those who are listening, I'm trying to do something a little bit new and different with the podcast as we go into, I think this is the 6th season. That's crazy to me, or 6th year of podcasting, that means. But we're going to try to follow some stories a little bit more closely. We've learned a little bit about Eric's diagnosis and Kitty's diagnosis and where they are as a family, and how they're each facing their HCM at this point in their life. So what I'm going to try to do over the next year is bring Kitty and Eric and others back to kind of do check-ins and continue the conversation. I can talk to anybody with HCM for days on end. Like, we could just keep going. Like, we could just get a hotel room, grab some wine, and we could just talk all night. But I think when you have these open and honest conversations in podcast form, and we're sharing it with other families who are going through the same challenges, other parent-child relationships at different vantage points and different times in life, making different decisions and wondering if they're weird or if they're doing this right, wrong, or could they do it better, or could they feel more comfortable in living the life that they have to live, life with HCM. We would all love to just package it up, throw it out the window and say our hearts are fine. We don't have to worry about any of this. But we do. So having those conversations are great, but also, who else is listening to this podcast? I got to tell you, people, I'm surprised who's listening. Thanks. Do the like, follow, share, all that kind of fun stuff, because it's working.
Good.
So lots of physicians are listening in now.
Oh.
And they're hearing a different side of life with HCM. And it's not that what they're doing isn't great and they're not good people doing good work, but when they listen to how these families are functioning and they're hearing real life, it's helping them examine how they handle us in the clinical environment. And it's also triggering researchers to think, how could we do this better or that better? And it's also bringing industry in to talk to us. And I know you two, I recommended you for a program with one of our sponsors, actually. And I know that you guys have been involved in sharing your story for Cytokinetics. And I'm sure lots of people are going to see your pictures all around on that project.
Good.
Sharing what it's like to live with HCM. We can do it through our industry contacts, through our partner contacts, with each other, with clinicians. And we can just gain deeper appreciation for others' lives, experiences, and how we can learn from each other. Eric, I love the fact that you are open about your LGBTQ status and that you understand that that plays a role in how you're dealing with your HCM as well. And we're going to unpack that a little bit more. But for those who aren't gay and maybe you're straight and you're thinking, what could I learn from that? We all have things about ourselves that are hard to come to terms with. And it may be body image, it may be size, it may be gender, it may be disability status. We're all facing challenges. And if we could learn a little lesson from somebody else's challenge, it may become your superpower. This is all I'm trying to do, is give everybody superpowers.
Love it.
I like it.
This is how we do it. We share our superpowers. Kitty and Eric, I thank you so much for joining me on the very first podcast of 2025. This has been Tales from the Heart, and this is our first visit with Eric and Kitty. Stay tuned later in the year for more to come. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you do.
Great way to start the year.
Absolutely.
Brought to you by Cytokinetics, Bristol Myers Squibb, BioMarin, Tenaya Therapeutics, Aviti Biosciences, Edgewise Therapeutics, and Melinta Therapeutics.